High income, high net worth divorces tend to be needlessly contentious. And I think that's where people get sucked into this idea that if you can, you should. And really, because you don't need to, you don't have to. For that reason, with all divorces, but particularly high asset divorces, I like to sit down and plan. Sit down from soup to nuts, go through everything from beginning to end on the parenting plan as well as in a separation agreement. Map out not only where you want to go, but where all your bright red lines are for negotiation before we even engage the other party. What this does is it allows you to be responsive versus reactive because you've got your game plan in place. You and your attorney have already decided where you're willing to give and concede. You make these decisions with full information without ever getting into that tit for tat. So when issues come up, you already know the answer to the question. Me as an attorney, do I ever ask a question that I don't know the answer to? Well, no, not if I can avoid it at all. So that's how we set up our clients for success in high asset divorces. What most people do when they get into a high asset or high conflict divorce is they think, okay, great, let's get a bulldog. I'm going to blow all kind of firepower at the other side. And what this really does is just needlessly escalates trouble. You make very marginal gains by, creating a lot of contentiousness. There's often a mistake that you're somehow going to get an advantage by shock and awe on the front end. And where I find in my almost 30 years of experience, where you really get the greatest advantage is in taking a big picture look at the fact that you are family. And even after the divorce, to some extent, you're going to remain family. Not only that, you have to continue to show up in the world as the person that you are in the divorce. The choices that you make, they make a big difference. So it makes the most sense to sit down, come up with a reasonable game plan, and then allow your attorney to aggressively advocate on your behalf for that reasonable settlement. High asset, high income divorces can include your basic multi-residences, businesses, business interest, Bitcoin, and ownership in closely held corporations. Those are often very difficult to evaluate. Pensions, and with the military, there are some very sticky division of retirement assets, what gets included in terms of income. Oftentimes, some of our military divorces are the most high income because they have an annuity pension that other people don't have to deal with any longer. When you have a massive pile of assets, even complex assets, they get divided exactly the same as if you were two wage earners who had a bank account and a 401k. It's just a bigger spreadsheet that we have to put everything on. You might need to hire experts to provide valuations or get advice on how best to transfer assets without undue tax implications. But by and large, a high asset complex divorce case is just like any other. The differentiator being that you need an attorney who's experienced dealing with the complexity of the assets themselves in order to properly divide those assets. Child support can also be complex in high asset divorce cases. There is a calculator for child support, but with high asset cases, the standard of living and the types of things that can be considered necessary for the child to continue to share in the lifestyle of the other parent, especially the higher earner, can cause deviations that wouldn't be present in an ordinary case. So it's really important to have professionals involved in your case that can not only understand but explain to the court why something like very high level athletic support for your child is a necessary expense and justifies a deviation upward. Like child support, alimony, spousal maintenance can also be one of those things that requires more finesse. It's one thing to say, hey, okay, here's my income, here's your income. This is a reasonable amount for you to live on. But with higher asset cases, we're not just looking on a subsistence level for the former spouse, the lesser earning spouse. We're really looking at situating that person equitably in a manner that is not exactly like they were sitting in during the marriage, but also doesn't place them in a position where their lifestyle falls into poverty while their spouse rides into the sunset on a golden horse. So, in a high income, complex divorce, it's just most important to be fully advised about what is reasonable, what to expect. And I think my very best tip and hack for getting it done at a reasonable cost with as little collateral damage and as quickly as possible is to plan, 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 and work things out for yourself on the front end. If you know where your boundaries are, if you know where your red lines are on the front end, it's going to be a much quicker and smoother path out of that dark time.